Let's start our today's session, and before starting our today's session, let's have a quick recap of what we did yesterday. So basically, in our previous lesson, we did the discussion about identification of different types of organs that are present and associated with the basically digestive system. And in digestive system, we did a discussion of basically what is the reason behind the uh, all digestive processes and why the molecules are being converted from large insoluble form to small soluble molecules. We have discussed some example like in which we discussed that carbohydrates like starch is converted into glucose, proteins are converted into amino acids, and lipids are converted into fatty acids and glycerol. Later, we did the discussion of main stages of digestive systems and that involved the breakdown of the food, in which we discussed ingestion, mechanical digestion, chemical digestion, absorption, assimilation, and digestion. So let's start our today's session with the functions of digestive organs. So we started its discussion yesterday, but I am going to start with this again so that we can continue and we can relate it with the next topic. So let's talk about the mouth first. As we did the discussion yesterday, in mouth there are two types of digestions that takes place. That is mechanical digestion and the second is chemical digestion. As we previously discussed that the mechanical digestion involved in the physical breakdown of food, and it is done with the help of teeth that are present in your mouth, and they help you to break it down into the smaller pieces. So it means it is the process that is only converting the food molecule the food that you took into the smaller pieces. And what is the basic purpose behind that process? So basically, this process increases the surface area to volume ratio. And we did the discussion yesterday that this is very important to obviously make the size of the food molecule small. Can you please give me the answer why we are doing this? Why we are making this smaller into this for its size? What is the basic purpose behind this? Why we need to do the physical digestion here? What's the reason? They can ask you. Which type of digestion? So you just said so it would be easily to engulf. It would be easy for us to engulf that food. This is right, but you can also explain in it another way. Just because later we want our different enzymes to work on these, and in order to make sure that enzymes are working on these and uh, and in order to make this possible, we need to increase the surface area because with larger surface area, enzymes would not able to work, right? So these are the reasons why our body needs to do the digestion, the mechanical digestion first. Followed by that, in mouth, not only mechanical digestion takes place, the second type of digestion also takes place here, that is a chemical one. And I previously told you the type of food molecule that is the chemical digestion of which takes place. Can you please give me the answer? Which food molecule is digested chemically in your mouth? Yes, starch is the food molecule that is chemically digested here. And what is the product as a result that is formed here? What is the product of chemical digestion of starch in your mouth? But that amylase is the enzyme that works on the starch. The product is different. Any other answer? Not glucose, bete. Glucose is formed later, but here, as a result of the action of salivary amylase, yes, maltose is formed. I told you yesterday, starch is a polysaccharide, and it's a big molecule, and as a result of the action of salivary amylase that is present in our saliva, that starch is converted into maltose, that is again a disaccharide. Later in your digestive system, that maltose will be converted into another molecule that you said the glucose, that would be the monosaccharide. So this is how it works. So let's move forward and now let's discuss the esophagus now. So for esophagus, you can see, does any type of physical or chemical digestion takes place here? Yes. So basically, it's a tube that connects your mouth to the stomach. So it means the digestion that was started in your mind, it can continue, but no addition of new enzyme would take place here. And as a result, what would happen here, that food would be swallowed, and as a result it would reach down the stomach. And here there is another important thing that you need to learn here, that the movement through the food molecule in the esophagus takes place with the help of these wave-like contraction that would make sure that obviously the food would pass towards the stomach without relying on the gravity. So can you please answer what is the name of those wave-like contractions and relaxations? I told you yesterday. Yes, it's called peristalsis. So they can ask you the function of peristalsis, then you can explain it that it is response, it's a wave-like contraction of the muscular tube that to make sure the food is passed from mouth to stomach. And let's talk about once it has reached the basically the stomach. So let's talk about the stomach now. So for stomach, you can see here, first of all, we need to understand which kinds of digestions takes place. So both chemical as well as the mechanical digestion would takes place. So mechanical as well as the chemical. So let's discuss both of them. So mechanical digestion, as we discussed yesterday, takes place through the process of churning or a churning action. So this not only results into the mechanical digestion, it would also help into the mixing of food with the obviously the secretions of the stomach. So mixing of food with gastric juices, yeah, gastric juice you can say. Let's talk about the chemical digestion now. So first of all, for before moving towards the chemical digestion, as we did the discussion yesterday, we need to understand what is actually present in your gastric juice. Can you please answer what is present, what are the three substances that are present in your gastric juice? Yes, hydrochloric acid is present there. And what's next beside hydrochloric acid? Can you please answer? Are you listening, bete? Yes, it's pepsin, and its inactive form is usually present, that is later converted pepsinogen. So it is present, that is later converted into the pepsin. There is another thing that I told you yesterday. Yes, mucus. So let's discuss them now. What are the functions how they're present and why they're present and what's their function. So basically, as I told you, HCl is present to kill microbes or the bacteria if they have entered in your body. And beside this, they also create an acidic environment. How would they create that acidic environment? By decreasing the pH. So once the pH has decreased, now the pepsin can be converted, pepsinogen can be converted into pepsin, and now it can act on the proteins, right? And what is the function of mucus? What is the function of mucus here? Can you please repeat yourself? No, beta, mucus is not here to trap the dust particles. Mucus perform this function in a respiratory system. But here, just because here the enzyme is present and HCl is present, the acidic conditions that are doing the performing the chemical digestion of protein, we don't want the stomach wall to be obviously digested. In order to prevent them, the mucus is present there to protect the walls of stomach, to protect stomach walls. That's why it is present. Just because here the enzymes are going to work that would act on the protein, and obviously we don't want our stomach wall to be digested. And for, as we said, the pepsin would act on the proteins. So basically, it means the proteins that are larger and complex molecule, they will be converted into the amino acids as a result of the action of enzyme that we called pepsin. And the pepsin works in the acidic condition, and the pH that it requires is 2. That is an acidic pH. Let's move forward and let's talk about the small intestine now. So for small intestine, there are basically two parts, the duodenum and ileum. We will talk about both of them one by one. So basically, let's learn what happens in the first section of your small intestine. So first section of the small intestine is called duodenum, and here all the digestion that was previously started will complete here. So it means in duodenum the digestion of all food substances would take place, and here in this case just because as we have mentioned here the three different types of enzymes would be present. So enzymes that would be present here are lipases, proteases, and lipases, proteases, and amylases. So these are the enzymes that are present in your in the first part of digestive system, that small intestine. And what would they perform? From where they come? So they are obviously coming from a pancreatic juice, from pancreas. And remember, I told you before when we were doing the discussion of the organs associated with the digestive system, and we did learned that the pancreas is present, and it is making sure that smooth digestion would take place. So it would make sure that it is secreting these enzymes that would later help to do different digestion of different food substances that are present here. So this is what they have mentioned here. So as you can see here, duodenum is where the food coming out of the stomach finishes being digested by the enzymes produced here. So here the enzymes would be different that I have said here. These are lipases, proteases, and amylases. Can you please answer what is which kind of food which food component will be digested by lipases? Yes, the fats, or you can say lipids. And for proteases? Protein, that's right. And the protease that is present here, just because it is coming from pancreas, we can use the term pancreatic protease as well as. And for amylase, what would be the, which food component will be digested by amylase? That's right. So basically these are the food components that are digested by using these different enzymes. So it means the obviously the digestion of carbohydrates was started in your mouth. Later on, followed by in your stomach, the digestion of protein started, and then now in the small intestine, the digestion of protein, lipids, and carbohydrates would complete. And as a result, obviously, they will be converted into the small soluble molecules. And as they mentioned here, the enzymes produced here, from where they are coming? So they are coming, or they are secreted from pancreas, that I have told you. You need to understand another thing here. The enzymes that are working in the small intestine, they are working in the basic, or you can say alkaline condition. So in the stomach, you have just looked at that, and you did that those enzymes that are present in stomach, they are working in the acidic pH, but here the enzymes are working in basic pH, so they are different from each other. And the pH on which they are working, that's basically 8 to 9. You need to learn the range as well. Let's talk about the second part of your small intestine. So before moving forward, we need to understand what is the basic function of the small intestine, second part of small intestine. So basically the second part of small intestine, the ileum, is involved in the absorption. That is very important process. And the absorption for what would be absorbed here. So as we did yesterday, that carbohydrates at the end are converted into the glucose, and these are the simple soluble compounds, and proteins at the end produces amino acids and lipids, and their breakdown results into the formation of fatty acids and glycerol. So these are the substances, fatty acids plus glycerol. So these are the substances that we call the you can say simple and soluble substances that can be absorbed in your blood. So it means this absorption of these substances would take place where? In the second part of small intestine that we call ileum. And there is another very important phenomena that you need to understand, that your ileum is adapted according to its function. Just because here the absorption is going to take place, so it means in order to absorb that digested food, it has certain adaptation. And what are these adaptations? So basically the inner lining of the small intestine has certain you can say structures present in it that we call villi. And these villi, they are very small, they are finger-like projections, and they create certain folds in your inner lining of the ileum. As a result, the overall surface area for the absorption of food and water would increase. So this is you can see this. These are the finger-like projections that are present in the inner wall. That one of them called villi. And you can see this is a straight line without any finger like projections, and this is with the projection. Which which one have the more surface area? 1 and 2. Which lining has increased surface area, bete? Can you please answer this? Okay, I said, can you see in front of you, there are two sides present here. In one of the inner side, you can see there are no folds present. And in the second side, you can see there are certain folds present here. Which type has increased surface area?
Second.
Yeah, it's second. That's right. Let's move forward and talk about the large intestine now. So for large intestine, as before moving forward, what happened in the small intestine? So the two things that happened here was the absorption as well as chemical digestion, right? And now let's talk about the large intestine now. So for large intestine, first what happens basically is the things that were required to be digested, they are completed in the small intestine, and the things that cannot be digested, they are passed towards the large intestine. Can you please answer or give me one of the food component that is not digested in your digestive system?
Fiber.
Yes, so fiber is one of the components, but still there are some parts of the food as well that cannot be digested. There are some, you can say, hormones as well, some other food components that are needed to be removed from your body. So that happens in your large intestine. So once they have reached there, so first of all, we will be reabsorb as much as water that we can, and then remaining material is passed to the colon, that is the second part, and then it is passed towards the rectum where this material is stored temporarily and then removed to the anus. Let's talk about some of these organs that are associated, not directly you can say involved in the alimentary canal. They are assisting the whole digestion process. So let's start our discussion with the pancreas first. So as can you please answer where excretions or the secretion, where the secretions present by the pancreas act upon, where they are passed? Can you please just give me the name of those enzymes that are produced by pancreas?
Amylase, protease.
Yes, I told you in the previous section that the pancreatic juice produce three different types of, you can say, the enzymes. These are lipases, proteases, as well as the amylases. So this is what I was asking you, and let's look at what is the function of each of them, all of them. So for that you can see here in front of you, they have mentioned the three types of digestive enzymes that are produced. These are amylase, protease, and lipase. Obviously, amylase is involved in the chemical digestion of carbohydrates. Protease is involved in the chemical digestion of protein, and lipase is involved in the chemical digestion of fats or lipids. And what are the conditions in which they would work? Just because their action is, the place of action is small intestine. And which part of small intestine? So basically, can you please give me where these enzymes work? In which part of small intestine the pancreatic juice is passed?
Ileum.
No, not ileum, bete. Ileum is basically the part where absorption takes place. So it's duodenum. where it actually happens. Okay, let's move forward and okay, so let's move forward and talk about the liver now. Okay, let's, before moving to liver, we were talking about the conditions. So the conditions that are required for these enzymes, the enzymes that we have mentioned here, the amylase, protease and lipase, they require alkaline conditions. And the alkaline conditions are, you can say, the alkaline pH that is almost from 7 to 8. Not 7, basically from 8 to 9, basically. Or you can say just almost 8, in which these are the condition in which these enzymes work. There is another thing that would work here, that would come here. So you can draw it here like this. So in small intestine, as we did the discussion, basically in the first part, or that we called duodenum, what comes, so basically just because here the digestion is going to be completed, so digestion completes here. And which kind of digestion? The chemical one. And you can see that which kinds of secretions are present. So basically the pancreatic juice, and as I told you, for a pancreatic juice to work, they need alkaline environment or alkaline conditions. And the enzymes they would produce are obviously amylase, that would cause the breakdown of you can say the food substances like carbohydrate, like starch, and it would convert it into, you can say just because the amylase is coming from pancreas, so we would call it pancreatic amylase. And pancreatic amylase would cause the breakdown of starch, and it would convert into the simple substances that we call the maltose, and then later it is converted into the glucose. And you can see here, we can draw the equation like this as well. Remember when we did the discussion of digestion in mouth, we did that one of the enzyme that was present here was salivary amylase, and salivary amylase converted the starch into maltose, and later the maltose, that was a disaccharide, would be converted into the glucose by the action of pancreatic amylase. So so it means we can say the digestion of starch started in your mouth and ends in the small intestine, duodenum. Is this clear? Yeah. And for duodenum, okay. And for the second food component we did was the fats or lipids. So lipids, the digestion of lipid didn't happen earlier, so this happens here, and as a result it is converted into fatty acids and glycerol, so that could later be absorbed, and it happens in the presence of an enzyme that we call lipase, and which the pancreatic lipase. So it means this is also going to be happened in your small intestine, duodenum. Later on, another thing that we mentioned, the protein digestion was started in the stomach. It would complete here, and as a result, the peptides that were produced as a result of an action of, you can say, in the pepsin that have worked in the stomach, they would convert the proteins into amino acids. And here the enzyme that would work here, so that is pancreatic protease. So that we called, the name of that is that we call trypsin. So the pepsin is the one that works in the stomach in the acidic environment, and trypsin is the one that it works in the duodenum, small intestine, in the alkaline conditions. Here there is another very important thing that you need to understand, is that when we said we need to create alkaline condition, so actually how can we obviously maintain these alkaline conditions? So alkaline conditions that obviously that are needed to work to be present, uh, just because all of the enzymes of duodenum work in the alkaline or basic environment. So how, from where we get these conditions? So these conditions are produced as a result of the secretion of bile. So bile is a secretion that comes from your liver. So make this thing clear that bile is produced in liver. So you can as you have seen earlier that liver was also associated there. So basically this is a liquid that comes from that we call bile. It is produced in the liver and then it is stored in your gallbladder. So these are two different things. Don't get confused in this. Students usually do mistake is stored in gallbladder. So let's look back what is the function of this. So basically, as I told you, it is responsible for creating the alkaline condition. And another thing, that's the function that is obviously first let's write it here. So it creates what we're talking about bile. So it creates alkaline environment so that pancreatic enzymes can work. And another very important thing it does, it is basically involved in the emulsification of lipids. So let's talk about what is emulsification. So take it in a way that emulsification is just the physical breakdown of large lipid molecules into the smaller lipid molecules. So these are the smaller pieces that would be formed as a result of the action of what? As a result of the action of bile. So the emulsification that we use is the term specifically for this, but this is a type of physical digestion. So it's not different from the physical digestion, just because here only the larger pieces of lipids are converted into the smaller one. They can ask you why we are doing this. So we are doing this so that later on these smaller pieces that are formed here in this as a result on these on these smaller bases, the enzymes could work and can do the chemical digestion. So as a result, how the and which enzymes would work here? So lipases would act, and as a result they would produce the fatty acids and glycerol, which was produced by the pancreatic juice. So this is how it works. Let's look back at the content here as well. So for lipids, they have mentioned the amino acids that are not used to make the protein. So this is what they're explaining here, that from where the bile comes. So basically bile is coming by the breakdown of the amino acids that were once present there in the, you can say, liver, and as a result it helps in the, you can say, it is formed as a result of breakdown of protein that we call deamination and produces urea. This is the content we did in our previous chapter as well. And later it is used or it stores the bile to release into the duodenum as required. So the bile is being produced in the liver and it is stored and then released into the duodenum as required by the gallbladder. So that's the difference between both of these, you can say, organs here. Let's move forward and talk about the physical digestion. So the things we did earlier, we did overall summary of chemical and physical digestion, the organs which are involved, the enzymes that work. So let's talk about physical digestion now, and later we will go into detail of the chemical digestion as well. So for physical digestion, as I previously told you, you need to understand
Can you give me an example of a physical digestion? Yeah, so by teeth in your mouth. Okay, can you give me another example? Yes, that's really good answer. I just told you emulsification is another form of physical digestion in which the large pieces of fats are converted by the action of bile into the smaller pieces. So let's look at the content now. So you need to understand. You might need to define this term as well. So for that you need to understand what is physical digestion, how you would explain this. So basically the physical digestion is a digestion that we also sometimes referred as a mechanical digestion that involves the breakdown of food into the smaller pieces without any chemical change. So it means during physical digestion like this, when this small piece of food is converted into the smaller pieces, the difference between both of these food pieces is just that the previous one was larger in size and this one is smaller in size. There is no chemical difference between both of them. And the reason behind the obviously this physical digestion is to increase the surface area, and once the surface area is increased, now the enzymes can work on these substances. So because our ultimate goal is to make sure that enzymes are working on obviously our food substances so that our digestion can complete. And they can ask you to give an example. So you can example the chewing action of your teeth, the churning action of your stomach. That's just also the physical digestion, and emulsification of fats by bile in the duodenum. As you can see here, so this is the explanation of term. This is where they can ask you the reasons, or you can say these are the examples. And for examples, did not only give you the example, they have said where it is happening. So chewing action in teeth and churning action in stomach, and the emulsification in the duodenum. So these are the three examples that they have mentioned in this. So there are different forms in which they could have asked you this question. So when we talk about the physical digestion, so physical digestion always involves the discussion of teeth. Just because we previously gave an example in which we said that you can say in mouth the physical digestion is being happened with the help of teeth. So let's talk about the mechanical digestion with the help of teeth, and then we would talk about different types of teeth that are present in our mouth. So the mechanical digestion is the breakdown of food substances into the smaller one without any chemical change. This is what we said we understand in the previous content. And for that we discussed some example like chewing, churning and emulsification. And obviously, in order to help our teeth, there is a saliva there, the bones of jaws are present here, just because they are used for the chewing to increase the surface area of the food. So this is the basic reason behind the physical digestion, so that they can be exposed to the saliva. And what is actually present in the saliva? In saliva, the salivary amylase will be present, and in which that would act on the starch that would convert it in maltose, but it would not able to work if the food is too large to act upon. So let's talk about some of the different types of the teeth that are present. They wouldn't ask you to draw the diagram. They can ask you to identify. So you can say these are different types of teeth, the incisors, the canines, the premolars and molars. And as I told you, you should able to answer by looking at them, that which type of teeth it is. So basically you can see the canines are more pointed. So when you need to look at which one is sharper, and they are less pointed, these one, and you can see the premolars and molars, they are quite different, and they are used for the chewing and grinding up of food. This is one, that is used for tearing of food. The incisor is used for biting and cutting the food, biting and cutting. And both of these are used for grinding and chewing the food. So they can ask you for the identification by looking at the diagram, that they would give you the diagram, and they can ask you to write guess the correct name. So identification question can come from here, and also they can ask you the function of different types of teeth here. So you need to look at the detailed structure of the teeth as well. So you're not required to learn the functions of each, but now, here you need to understand, you should be able to label the structure of your teeth. So, and it usually comes in the form of identification or labeling caution. So this, as you can see, this is one of the teeth that you can see that is present here. So basically the outermost layer that is present here, that's basically the whiter one, that's we call the enamel. Followed by that, there is another harder layer that is present here, that's we call dentine. And these are held together with the help of these muscles. So these are called gums that are present, and they are associated with it. And you can see the outermost part of the teeth in the upper portion is called enamel, but in the lower portion you can see it's cement. So it's present at the inner side, and this is the bone or jawbone that we were talking about. And you can see within at the inner side of the teeth there are richly supplied with the nerves as well. So you can see here the nerves are coming and being branched here, so that's why you can feel the sensitivity of these teeth as well. And you can see they are supplied with blood capillaries as well as, so this you can see this is an artery, and the blue one is the vein, and the cavity in which these nerves are present is called pulp cavity. So this is how you would label the structure of the typical teeth. So that's it for today. If you have any question, then you can ask, please.